you. I'm Mary Menix, and I am on the Education Task Force for the RVWA, and then I'm also able to serve on the board, which I feel honored about. Today's speaker is about public speaking, and as a reminder, we're having more sessions coming up in July and August, if you wanted to register for those as well. And then after the series, we plan on sending out feedback forms and wanting to hear feedback from you. Just a little background, the RVWA has over 3,000 members, both women and men, that support over 570 companies. Our mission is to elevate, educate, and promote women in the RV industry. And as a part of this mission, we created this summer series last year, actually, and then it went over so well, we wanted to do it again this year. So with that, it is a pleasure to introduce Stacey Harris. She is the Director of Marketing at Truma. And Stacey has a well-rounded background in the agency world and the client landscape. She has helped manufacturers, professional service groups, and dealer networks monitor perceptions, manage conversations, and proactively seize opportunities to boost brand awareness and reputations. Stacey will be speaking to the anxiety related to public speaking in the workplace, as anxiety continues to increase, especially given with society's digital communication also increases. So we are going to learn how to manage public speaking, adapt to our audience, and create effective presentation decks. Please take it away, Stacey.
All right, here we go. Is everybody ready? Okay, we are going to share. Thank you very much, Mary, for that introduction. I appreciate that. As Mary mentioned, I am going to talk with you today about public speaking. And we were joking earlier about me being nervous about public speaking. You'll find out why. So for the last few years, I have had the honor of teaching college students the basics of speaking publicly effectively. Take a guess how many college students like speech classes. If you said 0 or close to it, you're pretty dead on the money. I mean, what could be worse than having a speech class, except having one at 8 a.m. on a Monday, which I've had to teach. And let's face it, college students do not want to talk in class anyway, and they definitely don't want to talk at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that was a fun one, but we got through it, and we'll get through today as well. So do me a favor, give me a thumbs up on your screen if you have ever taken a speech class in high school or college. All right. Cool.
Okay, I'm still trying to find the thumbs up.
Yep, no worries. It takes some time. It's all good. Okay, so
just raise your hand. It's the same thing.
There you go. I'm a very informal speaker. Okay, so you will hear me fumble words. You will hear me stumble. You will hear me probably say a few times. That's okay. And that's what today is about. All right. It's about managing what you're going through, managing the speech, managing the presentation, and enjoying the process. So that's what we're going to do today. All right. Personally, I applaud universities that require a basic 100 level speech class, no matter the major. I think it's essential. I also will be the first one to vote for a public speaking course for high schools and a requirement to graduate from high school. Because see, whether or not we recognize it, we are speaking in public in some way, shape, or form. Even the most introverted, shy, no way, no how, I'm not getting up there, speak in public almost every day. For example, when we are placing orders at a restaurant, we're speaking in public. When we give an interview, we're speaking in public. When we buy something in a store, go to the bank, we're speaking in public. See, we know what happens when we don't speak clearly when we're ordering. Hamburgers become fish fillets, milkshakes become Diet Cokes. Okay, so that's probably pushing it a little bit, but you get the idea. Think about the different types of interactions you have in just 1 week. Appointments, interviews, phone conversations, meetings, friend groups. Chances are strong that if we are out in the world living our lives, we are speaking to the public every day. Therefore, we are all public speakers. And we're gonna advance this. There we go. And here's the other kicker. Always practice with your technology, which I have done. We'll talk about that in a bit. So why then does research show 75% of US adults admit to being afraid of speaking in public? The fear of public speaking actually has a name. It's called glossophobia. There have been numerous studies looking at this fear. Researchers have examined physiological changes and causes, psychological causes, behavioral cues, and more. And if you Google books on overcoming fear of public speaking, you'll find 40 titles on the first page alone, all just waiting to provide you with encouragement and enlightenment and courage to move on, okay? Think about it. What's the worst that could happen? Glossophobia looms large. Presenting or speaking in front of others is uncomfortable for many of us, me included, like I've said. So someone asked me last week if I was excited about today's presentation, and I replied with, yes, but I'm scared to death. Even just a little bit ago, I told Susan I was scared, especially when I heard that this audience grew. And my friend looked at me and was like, okay, but wait a second, you teach this, right? I wouldn't think you would be nervous. The truth is, even the most seasoned of speakers can experience anxiety, and a little bit of anxiety is good for you. See, I've been speaking in public since I was about 14 years old, okay? And I was drafted onto the high school speech and debate team after a teacher heard me present a research project in health class. So throughout high school, I stayed on that team and I competed across the state in several categories. My favorite category was original oratory, or OO, as we speakers called it back then. Thinking back now on that, though, I believe that that event set the foundation for me as a speaker, as a presenter, as a professor, and as a marketer. Because I wrote my own 10-minute speeches, memorized them, and delivered them every Saturday for 3 straight months every year of my high school career. I chose the topic based on what I felt the judges would find most relevant, and I memorized the speech, practiced it consistently, so that I could present that speech with few flaws and as much personality as I wanted. Sometimes I hit it out of the ballpark, and others, not so much. I went on to double major at IU Bloomington in journalism and speech communication, which combined my love for writing and speaking in public. And since then, I have presented to audiences of various types and sizes on different topics. I've pitched clients for new business. I've presented news stories on TV, and I've even performed on stage. And yet, when I was asked about today, I still replied and would reply right now, I'm scared to death. Just how it goes. Public speaking can create anxiety in any of us because we are concerned about what others think, right? Will they judge me? Will I make a fool of myself? How many times will I say, I think I'm up to 1 so far. We feel vulnerable when we speak in front of others, and it's quite understandable. Yet, think about it. What can happen when we speak to an audience or present to a board? We can make an impact in many different ways, and those impacts can be lasting. So today, without having to read any of the 40+ books from our Google search or exposing ourselves to a deep academic study, we're going to look at a few practical ways that we can manage our anxiety so that next time when we're presenting here in the workplace or in an academic environment, we allow ourselves to lean into our fear and make it work for us. How do we do that? All right, here we go, folks. The 3 ways that I'm going to share with you are prepare, practice, and present. I have a friend who always says there is no such thing as bad weather, just a lack of preparation and clothing choices. I tend to agree with him, and I can see his point. Preparation for almost anything is key. We prep for exams, we prep for an event, we budget for the fiscal year, we plan our marketing tactics, and we pack our suitcases based on the weather report. And yes, I am using notes today because I have a lot I wanted to cover, and if I memorize this, who knows where we'd be right now. So prepare. In More Roses, famous words, one must be prepared for any event. And if I tried to do her accent, it would not go. So I'll do my own. The first step in preparing is knowing who is going to be in your audience. Whether you're speaking to a city council or a corporate board of directors, your internal team, the school PTA, understanding and knowing as much as you can about your audience is the strong first step to calming your own anxiety and speaking successfully. And you start with a few basic questions. Who will I be presenting to? What can I find out? You may go to age demographics, hence the age conversation, ladies, that we had before we started. You may use your industry ties. You may use your career experience. You may look at their cultural values or their career goals. You look at their beliefs on the topic that you're going to present. That's important to you because then you understand what they're expecting, what they'll hear, and what you can provide to them. Then you're going to look at your overall goal. Is the presentation meant to inform, perhaps on the month's budget or the achievements of the past month? Or is it more of a persuasive speech? Are you pitching a new client? Are you trying to get your boss on board with a new idea? That's also important to understand. Okay, so in the movie Erin Brockovich, not sure if everyone's seen it or not, but Erin Brockovich worked with her boss, Ed Masry, who you see in this picture, and it was to represent the town of Hinckley, California, against PG&E, all right? So it was in a lawsuit for contaminated water. And if you've seen the movie, you will recall when Erin was able to connect with the residents. I mean, she took the time to learn about them. She sat and had coffee, cake, dessert, tea. She learned about who they were, about their kids, about their dreams, their struggles. She wanted to understand them as they were as people and what they needed from her. But when another firm came into the picture, they did not. They were there to help with the case and more professional than Erin was, and they were there to get things forward, right? Except the case almost fell apart. And the reason it did is because those residents didn't connect with the lady from the other firm. They did not connect with the lawyers who just basically looked at them as medical files and not people. And that's important. So when I was preparing for today's presentation, I did what I could to not only learn about RVWA and our members, but what other webinars and educational opportunities the organization has sponsored, about past symposiums, about past sessions, but who's involved in the RVWA? What levels of industry do we represent here today? Could I get a feeling for the group and what types of information on public speaking would resonate with you and what you might be able to use in your everyday lives? So building a strong understanding of our audience is the first step in being prepared to speak. Second, knowing your topic and the best way to present it. So I'm a marketer by trade, right? Let's say you are presenting a new ad campaign to your board and it's a first for your company and you're not sure the executives are going to buy your idea and see your vision. On one hand, you could take the idea in, show some pretty pictures, show a draft of what the campaign might look like and what you hope to achieve and hope they follow it. Or you can research to find relevant data that supports your approach, provide examples of similar campaigns and the results. Research the competition as needed, compare and analyze how your idea might be different than theirs, and what would happen then. So in other words, bring data to the table, bring more knowledge about the topic to the table. This is especially important when it comes to persuasive speaking. You can't just get someone to believe in what you're thinking or your idea just because you tell them to. Okay, so that's where the knowing the audience comes in, and that's where knowing the topic comes in, but bring in additional information, bring in those backup, if you will. Take the time to learn more about the topic, even if you already feel somewhat of an expert. And that's actually what I did for today. Did some research, looked at a few things, looked at a few other speeches about public speaking, and I should have figured out how to keep your glasses from falling off your nose, but if you would pardon me, that one gesture will keep it going. In a nutshell, though, being prepared for a presentation means we've done our homework, right? We know who we are speaking with, we have a strong understanding of the topic, and we are ready for anything. Almost. I bet that many of us have heard this phrase before. Practice makes perfect. Keep practicing that pitch. Keep shooting the basketball. Keep speaking into the mirror. Keep practicing and you'll be perfect. I know I certainly did. And for a while, I actually succumbed to that belief. However, when it comes to public speaking or presenting and calming my own nerves and anxiety, I tend to believe more in this. The more you practice, the better you get. I have witnessed, very few, I don't even think I can count on one hand, perfectly given public speeches. Even the best speakers say the occasional and they miss words, they stumble. One time, the presenter just decided to walk off stage. Done. Stopped in the middle of a sentence, walked off, and the audience was left to go, okay, deer in the headlight look. Totally had no idea what to do. So instead of striving for perfection, what if we just reach for strong connections with our audience, with our topic, and with ourselves? Let's focus more on providing information that will make our audience nod along, as I've seen a few do, smile when something is interesting or funny, and just be involved and engaged with it, okay? Indicating to us that we are able to present meaningful ideas to the right audience in the right way. That's what we should be striving for. While not letting our butterflies in our stomach get the better of us, because they sometimes do, and that's okay too. Just keep going. I'd rather, I think, than the practice makes perfect, I should have had Dory saying, just keep swimming, because that probably makes more sense, right? Practicing ahead of time gives us the chance to reword what doesn't work, to take out those words that cause us to stumble, and to provide us with the opportunity to change our minds on something about how we want to say it, the way we want to do it. All right. Most importantly, though, it does help to calm your nerves. When you practice, you get through it. And when you act as if you're actually giving it to someone, or you do so in a mirror or such, it gets you a little more calm. You feel a little more confident because you know what you're going to say and you can move forward. Okay. For me, I have found that reading my notes out loud several times is the best way for me to practice. I don't memorize. And I know, Susan, you mentioned that earlier when we were talking. Memorizing your speech is a recipe for disaster, because you will get caught on something that you missed and you won't know where to go from there. And it's kind of like, okay, so just practice with your notes. Some people like to practice while they stand in front of a mirror. I've had many of my students try to do that. Others record themselves. In fact, there is one speech in my course where we have the students record each other and then they have to evaluate themselves. And as you probably know, you are your own worst critic. So they are pretty harsh on themselves, more so than we are. We also do peer evals of them, and all the other students will evaluate the speaker for the day. It just helps you learn. Practicing helps you learn, and practicing helps you, again, calm the nerves. But the key to do it is practice in whatever way you feel most comfortable. I mean, I perform a concert, one-man band, every day on the way to work. If you want to practice in the car on the way, your morning commute, do that. If you want to record yourself while you're doing it, do that. I like practicing in a closed room, usually my home office. Today it was a small room here in the office, because I don't want anyone else watching me at the time. I want to focus on what I'm doing. And I save most of my energy for when I'm in front of everybody. It is the one way I can think through what I'm trying to say and make notes on my outline. I tell students and others to put cues down. Pause, breathe, blink. You're doing great. Those little cues that help you understand that you're getting through it and that the nerves that you're feeling are, okay, not too bad. I also time my presentations. I know how fast or slow I'm going to be by the way I practice. And I've timed this a couple times. Looking at the clock now, I realize I'm talking faster than I normally do. And I already talk fast. So we'll keep trying to slow it down a bit. It's important, though, because usually when people are speaking in front of an audience, they do speak faster than they normally would. and you want your audience to be able to hear you, understand the words that you're saying, and follow along. Along with the rate of speed, though, practicing allows us to make a few more adjustments when we need to. We make sure our pronunciation is correct. We make sure our voice levels are strong. Eye contact is there. Webinar's a little hard, right? Because I only see maybe 6 folks right now, but I know that there are many more. And body movements are intentional. As you probably guessed, because my hand's probably been in front of my face a few times for you all, I use my hands when I talk. I make points with them. I also walk to emphasize a point, but you need to do that in a smart manner because those things matter. How well we speak is not just tied to knowing our topic and our audience, but how well we speak and what we do with our movements and everything else brings us to our next point, which is presenting. All righty, you did everything, right? We've identified our audience, we've researched our topic, the speech outline is written, and we've logged multiple practice sessions. We are good to present. Or are we? First question, to have a visual aid or to not have a visual aid? I don't think Shakespeare wrote that. I think that was me, but that's the question for today. Done right, presentation aids can help capture attention. They improve our learning, they generate emotion, and they help you stay organized. Done poorly, and a well-meaning presentation or deck can turn into a hindrance. So let's go back to the beginning of what I first started saying was consider our audience. I know that we're on Zoom. Video on Zoom does not work well for me. What type of room are you going to be in? Who are you speaking with? Should you have captions on? Should you not? Should you use video, audio, handouts? Quick note on handouts, do not hand them out until the end of your presentation because everybody will be looking at that and not you. Charts, what kind of charts should you use? Should you use charts? So as you notice today, I've chose a very simple slide deck. I haven't put a lot on it. You aren't going to see many more. I think we're at 11 of 17. I wanted to add emphasis to this presentation, but I didn't want it to feel too academic because it's a different group than what I, normally talk with. That's usually anywhere from 19 years old to, I think my oldest student has been over 50, which is fun. It's great. I have several examples of excellent and not so excellent speeches as well. And I could have chosen to use those today. In fact, I will give them to the group, the education group, the committee, and let you guys have them. And if you ladies want to watch them, feel free. I find that watching others present allows you to learn and understand good habits, bad habits, and ways to improve, okay? When deciding what type of visual aid to use, however, it is important to consider factors such as, like I said, the audience, the purpose of the speech, the technology available, the room. 15 minutes before this presentation, could not get my monitor to hook up with the conference room monitor. You have to start early because if you don't, and I think Brandy and I talked about this before, if you don't get on and know that you can share well, that things go well, that you can make it full size on the screen, that can, be a nuisance for you as you're speaking and take you off track so that you're not sure what you should say next. As I mentioned for this deck and for most decks though, keep them simple. Don't use too many transitions. The animations are fun. I love to watch things flying on screen, but when you're presenting, it doesn't quite work as well. Keep your font simple, keep your colors consistent. Don't try to put all of your key points on one slide. Don't read your slides. Big no-no. Because your audience can read. Just hit those few points, hit those high points. Let them be engaged with it. Let them know that you are listening to them as well by nodding, by sharing certain things. If you do use a video in a deck, test it in presentation mode before the actual speech to ensure that it comes through clearly and everyone can hear it. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a presentation or heard someone do that and they hit the video and no one can hear it. And you're turn red, about as red as this guy on the screen, and you have no idea what to do next. So always practice ahead of time with that. But all in all, your deck should not replace your presentation. It should assist it. All right. So as I mentioned before presentation, we've done everything right? We know our audience. We know our topic. We've practiced. Check, 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 and check. Yet, when it's time to speak, something doesn't quite work. That happens. Don't panic. We need to remind ourselves that there are some things we can control and some things are just not within our reach. So what is in your control when you speak? First of all, don't get a seat when you spin, because I tend to walk, as I mentioned, when I talk. So I'm spinning, so I apologize for that. Be real, be authentic, doing that as well. You know, it's up to you and your audience and what you think you need to do, but vary your pitch, take your tone, volume, convey emotion, emphasize points, maintain interest. If I were talking to you in this tone of voice the entire time we were talking, and I wasn't using my voice or my hands, and I just spoke to you, and I was just a talking head, chances are good you would not have enjoyed this even a little. The monotone professor, I think we've all probably had him or her, did not do anything but just talk in one tone. It kind of reminds me of Bueller. For those who have seen Ferris Bueller, Bueller, that's what it would be. Use your effective body language, enhance your message, make it more impactful and memorable. As I mentioned, I use my hands when I talk. Normally, I wouldn't have to adjust my glasses as much, but I'm looking down at the screen. So what I've noticed that I didn't notice earlier when I was practicing is my glasses are slipping. You want purposeful gestures, not I have students who rock back and forth on their feet. I have students who put their hands in their pockets. I have students who are doing this the entire time they talk. You name it. If you're going to use your body, use it in a meaningful way. Make eye contact. Again, hard to do with a webinar, but you know what I mean. Maintain good posture. Show that you're in control. Be confident because you prepared for this, and control your expressions. If somebody gets up and walks out in the middle of it, don't roll your eyes. You know, those memes that are out there that say, if I didn't say it, my face did. How does it do that when you're speaking? But anyway, you know what I mean. However, there are things you cannot control, such as people leaving in the middle of your speech. Technology, we can't control that. The virtual platforms, the videos, the images, the microphones, the Wi-Fi connections, all of that. Things happen, glitches take place, and it's usually right when you're talking. People, the audience size, participation, their reactions, what they do with it. You may expect 5 people to be in your group, and there's 105. You may expect 105, and there's 5. There are some things that you just need to be okay and roll with, because everything else in the world seriously can happen when you decide to give a public speech or present. Okay, so let's think about this. In our public speaking classes, we consistently tell our students that when you do all this, you prepare, you know your audience, you know your topic, you've researched it, you've practiced, you're good to go, yet there's something quite missing yet, and it's usually the conclusion. We consistently tell our students that strong conclusions can make or break an entire speech. Too many times I have heard students say, well, that's it. That's my speech. And they sit down. The conclusion of a speech should leave your audience with an impression, preferably a good one. You use those last few minutes of your speech to summarize what you've presented. You tell a final story. You leave the audience with an incitement, something. So here we go. Today, we have discussed practical approaches to calming our glossophobia, or our fear of public speaking. We understand that knowing the audience and our topic will set the tone for the presentation and help us feel more prepared. Practicing ahead of time will boost our confidence and hopefully quiet the queasy butterflies a little. And presenting with clear voices, great tone, rate of speed, visual aids that help, don't hinder, will all seal the deal. So with that, here are a few final thoughts. Make eye contact with the audience to create a sense of intimacy and involvement. Bring in the stories like I have today, whether it's a movie that you've watched or friends that you have that have done something or something you've done yourself. Make it relatable, because if it's a topic that you are passionate about, that you have spent time looking at, even if it's for work, bring in something that is an example, that's a story that you can use for impact. Encourage questions, which we're going to talk about in a few seconds. Provide thoughtful responses to enhance audience participation. And if you can, use live polls. So earlier I asked you to give me a thumbs up. Survey, gather audience opinions. The one thing that we have done with our classes that I really enjoy is, before we do a persuasive speech, before we have them convince us to believe something that they believe, the students that is, we have them do an audience analysis. So they write a survey of 5 questions, and we talk about the importance of those different questions, whether it's multiple choice or open-ended or yes or no. And we have them give those surveys to their fellow students and then take them back. Because when they take them back and they look at what others are thinking about, whether it's the right to vote or eating chicken over beef, or, I mean, I've heard it all. When we have them do that, they start to understand how they should adapt their topic and what they're going to say. They understand more of what to research. So for us professionals in the workplace, we can do the same thing. When I was talking about the ad campaign, we can survey our board of directors or survey our executive team. We don't have to give it to them on the internet or give that to them via email. No Survey Monkey necessary. We just talk with them. We ask them questions. The more you can do that ahead of time, the more the audience feels involved and the better your research is going to be. And then afterwards, as we mentioned, as Mary mentioned, we're going to do a survey of all of these sessions. We're going to seek feedback, take input. What went well with these presentations? What didn't? I'm going to talk to my coworkers here that are online. What did I do good? What did I do well? What did I not do well at? Did I stumble too many times? Did I talk too fast? What should I do differently next time? Seek that feedback, take the input, and reflect on the presentation. And most importantly, remember that there are 2 types of speakers: those that are nervous and those that lie. According to Mark Twain, that is. Okay, so questions. What can I tell you? Words of advice, anything I can give anybody. And if not, that's okay too. Don't forget you're on mute if you want to ask a question.
Someone
It
has
looks
that.
like we have one over in the messages that says, how do you stop the shaking?
Especially if you find that out, if you find that out, let me know. Hold on one second. I'll look at the questions here. Do you really need to stop it though? Use it. If you're shaking, it's okay. If you didn't shake, I'd be more upset or more worried. Talk to yourself beforehand. Breathing exercises. Use your hands when you can. I don't pick up my drink too many times when I'm speaking because my hands are shaking. My hands shake normally all the time. So when I'm speaking, that's why you'll see me use them, because then you can't tell that they're actually moving. Mainly, I would go back to the 3 P's that we just used. Prepare, practice. Just feel okay about it. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, Nicole and Amber. Let's go with Nicole first.
What are your thoughts on using storytelling in your public speaking, and how do you incorporate that?
I love it. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on top of you and interrupt you, but I think storytelling, I'm a big storyteller. I think storytelling allows your audience to understand you more. I think storytelling allows you to connect with your audience more. You have to make sure that you don't want to ramble. It needs to be concise. It needs to make sense to what you're talking about. I've seen one tactic that works really well where you start a story at the beginning of your speech and your conclusion, you end the story. And everything in the middle supports both of those. Does that help? All right, Amber.
Hi. So this, there it is again. This is more tailored to in the RV workplace, if you will, as a woman in the RV industry. And this probably piggybacks off of just practicing the steps that you talked about today. But is there any insight or tips on when you are the woman in the room of men, and just demanding their attention and recognizing you as the authority figure in whatever it is you're talking about in the conversation? I feel a lot of times either we're cut off mid-sentence or it's like, thank you for your opinion, and now we're moving on. So is there any way to navigate that in just the day-to-day workplace?
I'm smiling because I've been through that. This is not my first position here at Truma. It's not my first position in the RV industry. I've been in the RV industry for a long time. So I understand what you're saying. First and foremost, wear a power outfit. Put on your favorite pair of shoes that day, your favorite earrings. Do whatever you need to. Get your nails done the day before you have a presentation, but feel good about who you are and put your best foot forward first. Buy a new outfit if you need to, whatever it might be, if it's a planned presentation. If it's impromptu and you just happen to be going in, speak with confidence. Do not apologize. I think I've apologized a couple times today, but I feel comfortable doing so with this group. Be strong in your voice. I have someone, I think she might actually be on this webinar. I have never seen a more confident individual or woman than this person. She walks in like she knows exactly how that rocket was built and how the RV goes, and she's going to do it, and that's it. Own it. Just own it. Because you do know what you're doing. You do understand your information. Make sure you're prepared. I know that sounds all, glossy and woohoo, but when I've walked in and I've presented the facts and I have a deck that shows that I've looked at those topics and I've thought to myself the questions that I could be asked or the ways that they can say no, and I have removed that from the equation. And I have decided that I'm not going to let them say no, so I'm going to give them every reason not to. I do better as a person and as a woman in the room. And I get the answers I want then. So I guess hopefully that helps.
Yes, it does.
Yes, don't let imposter syndrome sneak up on you. It's so easy.
Yes,
Way to
it
go.
is. We have another one. How do you adapt public speaking for Zoom?
We're doing that today, right? Because trust me, my feet have been moving all over the place, but you can't see them. So one of the classes I taught last year was a hybrid class, and it was teaching the students how to present speeches. And part of the time it was on Zoom. It's difficult. That's when you really need to be clear. That's when you need to practice as much as you can, because it's very easy to forget. So I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll show you. Those are my notes. I took my notes and I took the slides from my presentation and I put them into my notes so that I knew when it was time to go to the next slide. You may not have seen that, or you may not have noticed it. I think one thing I'll do in the future, something I felt here, is I won't have so many pages, or I'll move them all over the table so you can't see me shift. That's something you can do. And I think testing the technology ahead of time is also something. More and more webinars are happening. We're not having, especially because of COVID and the pandemic back in 4 years ago, more conferences went to online. I don't prefer that. I prefer that being in the, with my audience. I prefer being in the room with somebody, which is why I asked some of my coworkers to come into the room today, so that I had someone to bounce things off of. But what you need to do is make sure, have people on the side so you can see some faces, and don't forget to breathe. It's probably the most important.
One good tip I heard was turn your camera off so you don't look at yourself.
That's the
Because
word.
you don't normally look at yourself when you're
Yeah,
presenting again.
I think Zoom's harder because you're so self-critical because you've got yourself in your face, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do not like myself on camera. I'm not the people who do.
So so we've got another question from Nancy, and she said, when would you suggest opening up for questions? Is it best to wait until the end, or do you encourage questions throughout?
Thanks, Nancy. I think that depends on who you are and what the topic is. I typically would take questions throughout if I was in person. Because this was on Zoom, I waited to the end. It's harder to navigate questions throughout when you're on Zoom or you're virtual. I also like to pause after topics. So typically if we were in person today, I would have paused after prepare and asked for questions about that specifically. And then with the other two topics that I presented. So Zoom, I'd go at the end. In person, I think it depends on the topic, but I normally would go during.
Excellent.
Yes, Monica, put your notes right below your camera. Then it looks like you're always looking at everyone. You are right on that.
It's really hard to look at your camera because it's kind of up and not
Yes.
always
I-
looking down.
This one I've tried to look straight ahead most of the time, but
Oh, we've got Brittany.
Brittany,
So I raised my hand as part of my question. So I am a type of person that I get really, really nervous energy, and it manifests in me interrupting people. I'm sure people, especially in here, have noticed that I do that a lot on accident. So I guess, do you have any tips for like how to mitigate that without losing the nervous energy? So I think nervous energy is good. You just have to figure out where to project it to.
tips for mitigating the nervous energy or tips for mitigating
Both.
interruption?
Yeah, both.
I'm famous for interrupting, so I'm not quite sure how to mitigate that. And if someone finds that out, they should let me know. The nervous energy, lean into it. Enjoy what you're getting ready to do. Think through in your head, what it is you're going to ask. And just be yourself. I mean, that's the thing, a lot of the questions that everyone's asking is, how do I improve and how do I do this? Or how do I not be me? Be yourself. You are most confident when you are you. And something I tell my students is I'm not asking for them to make A's. I'm asking for them to feel more comfortable being in front of people, because when you're more comfortable with it, you start to harness that nervous energy. You start to lean into what's happening. And that's what's going to help you be successful. If you're trying to be someone you're not. And so the worst thing that you could do is, I mentioned that I looked at presentations beforehand, and I looked at some other speeches about public speaking. I actually wouldn't recommend that to everybody. The reason I wouldn't is because you're too busy trying to be someone that you thought did such a fantastic job that you're not being who you are. So if you're on Zoom, raising your hand and pausing and then saying something, Zoom is great for not interrupting and for harnessing that energy, because you have to wait until they say your name or say yes. Just keep relaxing and breathe. And as you notice, my answers are multifaceted and go everywhere.
Mary had a great one to that one. She says, take a drink of water, coffee, or whatever. When you go to interrupt, just put it in front of you.
As long as you don't have the shaky hands like I do and it goes like this, you're good. You're good.
I have the same problem. So we've got a couple more. Here's one from Hannah. How do you use humor to relax the mood?
I think I'm the funniest person on earth, but I'm not. Ask my husband. He's actually the funniest person on earth. I think they come in your stories. And I think, though, I have seen humor go wrong. I have seen folks use jokes that they think is funny as can be, and it just hits an audience and goes thud. The key to using humor is to understanding the audience that you're going to be talking with. And that's most important. Understanding their cultural values, understanding who they are. Because if you don't use a tasteless joke, don't use a joke that could seem offensive to some, be inclusive, be respectful, be ethical and moral, have all that. I tend to be self-deprecating. I can lean too far into that sometimes. So I would say, as long as you are comfortable with the audience and you know that they will understand what it is you're trying to be humorous about, then you're good. If you're not typically funny, just go with who you are again, because you don't want to say something and have everybody go, that wouldn't work.
Stay away from jokes.
Oh. Oh, I'm telling you, I've seen some go so bad.
You know, what is funny in my retrospect is laughing at myself, especially when you're on stage and you do something wrong, you do something stupid and you just like totally mess it up or whatever. I mean, you just take a pause and you just laugh at yourself and say, okay, well, obviously that didn't go well. Let's start again or whatever. And just take a deep breath. And normally the audience is like, yeah, they totally get it. And they kind of laugh with you. Because you got the little humility to be able to do that and a comfort to do that. But I always found if I could laugh at myself, then it works out very well. So Nicole had another question.
Yes.
What do you do when someone asks a question and you literally do not know the answer?
You admit you don't know, but you'll find out and you'll get back to them. So you take their number, you take their email, and you get the information back to them. Saying you don't know something is okay. You're not going to know everything. I read a series that claims that saying that I don't know, but I will find out for you is a sign of strength, and lean into that as well.
I would agree. We've got another one from Nancy. Most of my public interactions is through sales calls. Is there anything different you would do in an atmosphere versus a stand-up presentation? So on a one-on-one compared to a one on a lot.
Well, again, yeah, I mean, you're always public speaking, right? What I was mentioning earlier, even when we do a one-on-one sales call, the main thing is to know who it is you're going to be calling upon, what they have done in the past, get an understanding of if they've worked with competitive companies, how they've worked with competitive companies, and prepare knowledge. Again, take away their reasons to say no. So the preparation is key to everything. Knowing who you're going to talk about or talk with and know what you're going to talk about are the main things.
And Mary had a great one on the, if you don't know the answer to a topic, ask your audience. A lot of them might know.
Done that before too. Yep.
Joanna said, smile when you're on the phone.
Always smile, even when you're in the room full of the male counterparts. Always smile. Just wonder what you're up to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else? This has been fun, you guys. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Alice has a comment. Thank you for the authentic talk, Stacey. She said, I invited my son in high school to this talk because I wanted him to hear how all of us, even as adults, find public speaking fearful. Appreciate the confirmation to lean into ourselves, be humble, and be sincere. Hope to meet you in person in Chicago in October.
Thank you. I hope to meet you too. I can't wait. It'll be fun.
I will say, just to piggyback, sorry, earlier on what Amber was talking about, our symposium does have a couple sessions on specifically like how to find your voice in a male dominated industry. So we wanted to, with the symposium, kind of tie all of our summer discussion series stuff together. So that was a great question to piggyback on that. To be like, come to the symposium if that's what you want.
It goes a little bit deeper, yeah, and
Yeah.
part of it is story power, where we're bringing somebody in to teach you how to tell your story, so to speak.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, public speaking or speaking in general or presenting or whatever, it's so much more than an hour on a Zoom call. And it's even so much more than a one semester class. It's about being able to harness all the information that you have around you, who you are, what you need to do, what the goal is. And if I can impress anything on you today, it would be to understanding who it is you're going to be speaking with and prepare for that. Once you do that, your confidence level boosts, everything just increases and you feel more at ease. I can't even stress it enough. Just can't.
I like the storytelling too, because people comprehend that, right? They'll remember the story. They may not remember all the words you had on the slide, but they'll remember the picture and the story. And I think that's really meaningful.
I think so.
I liked that you had pictures and then you just talked about the pictures. I thought that was really good. We went through a session at the Carlson School of Management at Minnesota, and that's what he only had pictures. He had like 50 slides though. But you remember it better because you remember a picture more than you do. I don't know. I thought that was really good.
I think I'm gonna use that for my symposium speech. I'm just gonna use pictures.
Yeah, just pictures.
There is a book, Talk Like TED, about the TED Talks, and I highly recommend it because what you don't want to do is, what I didn't want to do, I should say, is I did not want to get up here and sound like a professor giving a lecture. I wanted to talk with you. I don't like talking at people. When you give a sales call, when you present, when you're just talking with someone, you don't talk to someone, you talk with them. And that book, I think it's like $17 on Amazon. It's a paperback. It's a great resource for you to use. And it does cover presenting. And yes, there you go. And it covers what your slides should look like, what you do with videos. Now, the one thing that it said that I did do, bullets. I like bullets because they're short and people can read them. But when you read that, it'll tell you no bullets. Okay. To each his own.
Yeah. That's great.
Anything else? No?
I am typing in the chat box.
All right.
Just an email address at RVWA. If anybody wants to reach out, we can connect you with Stacey. And get slides and whatever else. So if anybody's interested, just kind of take a look at the chat box there. Just info@rvwa.org. Try to make it as simple as possible.
Sounds good. And I will open it up. If you happen to be giving a presentation anytime soon, or you say you're presenting at the symposium and you want someone else to read something, I'm always willing to do that for friends. So let me know that.
We will also have
That's awesome.
recordings of all of our series discussions on the website, by the way. So if anybody wants to go back and watch it, it'll be there.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I might have to do my self-evaluation.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. Don't go back and review yourself.
Wait a couple weeks so you can let the sting fade.
I was gonna say, we're too highly critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
As
Are.
women, we look at each other, we're too hard on each other or not on each other, but on ourselves. So I try not to go back and look at anything I've done because I just destroy myself.
I do too.
Exactly.
too.
Just take all the really positive feedback from all these amazing women.
You
Good
got it.
job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, your
Yes.
generosity, and your comments and your questions. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And I look forward to hearing the speaker next time.
Great.
Nicole is ours for next
Nicole,
week.
you're up.
Yeah.
All right, Nicole.
Yes, did Mary want to give a sneak peek for the one next month?
Well,
Or well, Nicole
I
could
will
just
let
Yeah, hers is
Nicole, I will
navigating
let
change.
Nicole speak to it. Yeah, yeah.
speaking and being put on the spot. There you go, Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole's
Yeah.
up next time.
That's all right. Following Stacey is going to be a beautiful, lovely act to follow. Thank you, Stacey. You did an awesome job. Next month, we're going to talk about navigating change, what that looks like for you, how you can understand yourself better, and how you can get through those changes more gracefully.
I can't wait.
And the industry is going through a lot of change right now. So I think it'll be helpful to all of us as we navigate.
Plan on having your cameras on and interacting because I want to see your lovely faces.
Well,
Great.
Mary, let's
Well,
you
thank
round
you.
it out.
Well, thank you, everyone. This was great. And the networking at the end was great. And the whole presentation was amazing. Thank you very much, Stacey. We appreciate it. And hope everyone has a great day.
We'll see
Take
you
care,
all
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.